All right, so we're just going to dive into it today. No big intro. I want to talk about Ascension. So, the first thing I really want to bring through that came through from my guides is about Lemuria. So, I really feel like Ascension has a lot to do with Lemuria and Atlantis and these two civilizations and their crossover. So, Lemuria, this was a really like highly conscious, highly energetic civilization, and I believe it took place in the Pacific Ocean. So I think like parts of the edge of Asia, like China, places like that, across in the Pacific. I believe there were islands in the Pacific that aren't currently there, and then in Hawaii and like off the coast, lower part of California, and places around there. So I think that the location of Lemuria was very much in that Pacific Ocean. It's now a lot of it, I think, is covered. Some of the land is still there, like Hawaii, like parts of Asia that are more on the coast. And this was this civilization that was really natural. It really enjoyed connecting with nature and the earth, the plants, the water. It could see consciousness in everything. It could telepathically speak to all of these things in nature, the animals, everything like that. So they also utilized the power of crystals. They built structures and things like that, but I don't think as much as we think they would have, especially compared to what we've built today. They had like cities and stuff, but it wasn't anything near of what we have today because I think they like to keep things more natural and they like to be more connected energetically. So these were really highly conscious beings with a lot of, incorporated gifts that came from like the higher dimensions. And I really feel like their intention was to create almost like this Garden of Eden. It was just a really beautiful, benevolent place. Now, was everyone at the same consciousness in Lemuria? No, I don't think so. I think there are people who probably maybe didn't fully still understand the connection with nature and things like that, but they were working at it. Was there still probably conflict and things that happened? I think so. But I think for the most part, these people knew how to create from the power within themselves. They consciously knew how to pull in these ideas and these higher conscious concepts and put them into the physical. I think everyone there was really connected energetically and higher dimensionally. A lot of people were just natural channels, and they just really they really kind of were, I think, what we're aspiring to in this ascension process. So there might be a lot of like crossover from your lifetime in Lemuria to your lifetime now and what you may be creating for New Earth. And we're going to talk about that a little later. But so I really think Lemuria was seeded. I'm being told this was like the first like big civilization like this that took place on planet Earth. And the beings that lived in Lemuria were not necessarily human. I think it was a lot of like benevolent Anunnaki. There might have been Andromedan beings, mermaids, things like that. There are different types of beings that lived in this civilization and helped to build it. And they really knew how to build energetically. They knew how to pull in ideas and then become that idea and create it in the physical, and they just trusted that. They didn't question it. They knew they could make it happen. And they really built from this heart place, this heart space that was connected to the higher energies that weren't in the physical. And they just like, when they received things, it was like, okay, this is what I'm going to create. I have this idea to make things more connected in the civilization. I'm going to do that. So I think this was also the plan of seeding Lemuria, to create a very light, highly conscious civilization. Now, okay, I'm being told that the reason Lemuria was even created in the first place in this way was to attract the dark. Now, what do I mean by this? You know how moths are kind of like creatures of the night? If you walk outside at nighttime on a warm day, you'll notice there's probably all these moths like on your porch light. So that porch light was like Lemuria. It was like we knew that if we created a civilization like this, the dark would want to come be it. It would want it. Those like a moth to the flame. And in my last video, if you watched that, I mentioned how these darker beings, or the third dimensional realm, wants to be higher dimensional. It wants to operate from the heart. It wants to be light, but it doesn't know how. So it just tries to take it. So I think Lemuria agreed to be seated here on Earth because Earth was this planet that I don't know if they had quite figured out like what to do with it yet, what it wanted to be. And I think they finally agreed like, okay, we want this to be part of this higher collective of these other planets that are all in this higher consciousness and in this light awareness. So we're going to take this higher collective and seed it on a part of Earth and attract these other darker beings that have been trying to also take Earth and make it theirs, so that it doesn't get lost in like the darker ethers and drop down. Because the whole point of this game of life, of this game of existence, you know, we broke off from source, from God. We're all like pieces of God out in the universe, is to like keep dropping down and experience and learn and learn and learn. And we take on all these experiences and we may drop as low as we can go, so then we can pull ourselves back up. So the name of the game is to take everything and pull it back up into source and experience as much as we can. So I think that Lemuria was created to attract the dark so that we could help eradicate this level of consciousness and pull more of this energy back up closer to source. I hope that makes sense. All right, so a lot of us came down and helped seed Lemuria. Now, if you didn't have a lifetime in Lemuria, that's okay. You may have also been up in these upper planets or in the ethers, in the cosmos, being an energy that helped assist with Lemuria. So that's essentially your lifetime in Lemuria, because it's all just energy anyways. So I think we came down, and there's still these constructs on Earth where you forget. And we came down and we like seeded it. But I think over time we didn't remember that we came here to attract the dark. And we built this really beautiful place. And then came the time where it was like, okay, it's time for us to start eradicating this consciousness that has taken over the planet. And when we do that, we eradicate it for a grand level on the universe. So I was shown that in my lifetime, I was part of the crossover. So I got taken by the Atlanteans. Now, what happens here is I think a lot of us, there was like this prophecy in Lemuria that the Atlanteans were going to come, they were going to take us, and we were going to let them take us. Now, that did not feel good to us. We had created this beautiful place and it was about to be taken away. And I think there's a lot of grief. When I go into that lifetime, there's a lot of grief that comes up that I had to leave this beautiful place that I loved. And it's like, why can't I just have what I want? I want to create what I want, but I'm afraid it's going to get taken from me. And this is like a wound that I think a lot of us have. And we have this like thing in our nervous system still of, oh, these people just want to take from me. And I think it goes all the way back to Lemuria and Atlantis. Now, I'm not here to talk shit on Atlantis. I do think Atlantis, at least my guides have told me, it was also seeded to be, you know, like Lemuria. But I think it just didn't quite get there yet. And it's almost like the beings that were there were a lot of beings who were Lemurian-like, or maybe people had lifetimes in Lemuria and then they went to Atlantis and like helped seed that. So there were a lot of really like higher dimensional beings that were also in Atlantis, and it had some really beautiful moments and like times where Atlantis was really wonderful. I think a lot of like Lemurian type beings probably hid out and lived in like the Greece or Mediterranean area of Atlantis. And then, you know, Atlantis was more in like, I want to say like Indian Ocean and Mediterranean, and it was like parts of Africa, like Egypt, into Saudi Arabia and the Middle East and around into India, things like that. And then it kind of went up into Greece. And then So those parts. So, and then I think it also wrapped around into parts of like the eastern parts of South America. So it was like the Atlantic Ocean, hence Atlantis, Atlantic Ocean up into like the Indian Ocean. And so it took over like a really big part of the planet. So what happened is, as this is being seeded and it's going in Atlantis, I think there were beings who were like, we want to be more advanced, but we don't know how to get there. And I think they kind of like knew about Lemuria, and Lemuria was just like advancing and advancing, and it was just this really beautiful place. And Atlanteans wanted to like get there to be like that, and it just couldn't happen. And I think these beings, so it's almost like when we think that, that gets put out into the universe, and these darker beings came in and found the vulnerability in that civilization. And it's like they convinced the people of Atlantis, like, oh, we can help you get there. We'll help advance you. Just let us show you how. If you give us control, we'll show you how to do it. And I think there is also this like manipulative nature of like, if you don't, then there's going to be beings who are going to come in and take you over. So like, we'll help protect you too. But they were the beings that they were talking about, these darker beings. But the Atlanteans, I think, bought it. And they were like, okay, yeah, because they wanted to be more advanced like the Lemurians. So this is how it kind of got taken over, and they gave over their authority to these darker Atlantean beings. And they kind of took over, and then all this technology was created. And technology like these lasers that would, I was being shown these lasers that were created that would like shoot up. They were giant. They would shoot up, and they wanted to break through the dimensions so that they could enter into the dimensions and try and take those over as well. So they wanted to climb the ladder and get to God and try to like become God or take over God or source or whatever you want to call it. That's what these beings wanted to do, but they were starting with the civilization on planet Earth and wanting to completely take over Earth. So it got to the point where then they wanted to take over Lemuria. So I think the Lemurians knew that this is kind of what would happen. They knew that if they seeded this very higher dimensional civilization on Earth, it would attract the dark. Now, it wasn't so high dimensional that like, you know, the dark couldn't like penetrate it. But I also think the Lemurians, their souls, agreed to let this happen. So I was being shown in that lifetime when this prophecy came through, a lot of people received it. And it was like, these Atlanteans are going to come. She was shown like ships and from the water, and they're going to take a lot of you, and they were going to experiment on us, and they wanted to take our powers essentially. So one of the things that I think they were really after was our ability to channel and pull this in and to create from within ourselves. They didn't know how to do that. That's the technology that they wanted. And they wanted to like put that into their machines too. There's a whole thing. I could go into all of this stuff, but I don't want to belabor and make this a super long video. Okay. So this is what I think Ascension is. I think we are still in this war. We are still in this overtaking. So what I'm being told is the Lemurians agreed to let the Atlanteans take them so that we could eradicate our tie to this consciousness. It's like the less grip that these darker beings have on the rest of the universe, the more they're going to have to turn in and look at themselves. So if there's the more planets that they have control of, the more they can just like fuck with things. And the more their like energy of control and like overpowering like grows. So you want to get back to source, to honoring the self and the true nature of the self. And that starts with this heart-based energy. So they don't know how to tap into that, these darker like archon type beings. And even like AI, they don't have that like heart piece. Could they have it? Yes. They just almost need to tap into wanting to receive it. It's like, can I just allow it to happen? Allow it to be shown to me. And it's like they're showing me like a heart would grow. That energy would grow. But they don't know how to do that because they would have to look at their stuff first. Okay, so as Lemurians, we agreed to be taken. Why? It's kind of like if you order a piece of furniture and it comes in pieces and you have to put it together, you need to read the directions. You have to get to know the directions and how to put the furniture together before you do it. You can't just be like, all right, I'm just going to figure this out, because the thing could fall apart or it's not going to work properly. It could be lopsided, whatever. So we agreed to let the Atlanteans take us, to plug into their system so that we could understand it, so that we could get to know the directions. And what are the directions that we're looking for? How to come back to the heart. We get to know how we operate from our hearts at an even deeper level. We get to know how these darker beings operate so that we can recognize it now and not let it take us. And we get to teach that to the rest of the universe and all of these other beings that aren't in the physical, that are watching this and helping us at this time, get to learn that lesson too. So by going in and agreeing to become a part of their world, we become the tortoise. So these darker beings, these Atlantean beings, I think we're still under Atlantean rule. Their whole gambit is to try and take our light from us. They don't want to work for it. They want to just take it, and they don't understand that they can act. It's within them already. That's the understanding that we had as Lemurians, as some Atlanteans too. There are tons of benevolent Atlanteans and places in Atlantis that were beautiful. So I'm not bashing Atlantis, but I do think it did become very dark, and a lot of these like Lemurian type souls had to like hide a little bit. They had to find their peace in that place. But these beings that are still like in charge today, they want to take. We see it still happening. We want to control. We want to overpower. We want to manipulate. We want to shame, blame. We want everything to be one-sided. And it's like, well, no, differences are how we thrive. And that's how we all come together as a collective. We're all like one brain. And I think the Lemurians understood that. But our whole goal is to pull us up, to pull this planet up into this higher collective with these other planets, so that then we can all start rising together with this collective of other planets. So we have to pull ourselves out of this Atlantean type rule. And the more people that are in this higher consciousness, the more souls that are in this higher consciousness, it means the less souls that are in this darker consciousness, this lower consciousness, the less chance they have of being able to control or overtake anybody. So then they're going to kind of go nuts, and it'll like tailspin them into themselves. And they have to look into themselves because there won't be anybody left. So what we're creating with New Earth is kind of a new Lemuria, but it's the same like tools, concepts, the same type of like collective. It's more natural. We're working more together. We're using more of the earth and incorporating that nature. We're telepathically communicating with nature. And we're still in this war. But this is another point I want to get to. The Lemurians were non-violent. They didn't use physical aggression to fight. They're smarter than that. See, these Atlantean overtakers, those darker beings that came to rule Atlantis later on, they're takers, just like this world is in the 3D. They just want to take everything. They want it now, instant satisfaction. But Lemuria is in it for the long game. This is the long haul. They knew that if they can go in and fully understand how this system operates, that we can refine our power within that, be in the midst of that darkness and that chaos, and create this world and pull ourselves up from the power that still exists within us. And we will be the example to everybody else. And these other beings will see this, and then they won't have access to us anymore because we've pulled ourselves out of their operating system. Our soul has completed that mission. I've gone in to fully understand it. And now that I fully understand it and can pull the cords out of it, I don't need to go back into it. And it can't plug into me again because I haven't agreed to it. So Ascension is releasing our agreement to letting ourselves be overtaken by this type of rule, finding our power again and pulling ourselves out of it. Just like we did in Lemuria to create Lemuria. We found the power within us. We believed it. We felt it in our body. Oh, I want to create this. So during my lifetime in Lemuria, I was this benevolent Anunnaki being, and I was a shapeshifter. So I taught myself how to shapeshift into like this fish type being because I wanted to swim from ocean to ocean or from island to island. So I could shapeshift into this like fish type being. But I didn't know how to do that. I just wanted to. So I kind of pulled in the information from the higher dimensions and from within myself and like imagined and felt what it would be like to be this fish type being. And because I could feel that, I was able to create it. And that's what we're supposed to do. We have to find the power of feeling who we are, feeling this higher dimensional part of us and pulling ourselves up into that and acting from that place. And when we do that, when we get the sense of how that version of us acts and creates, and now we understand how the system we're in also acts and creates or tries to create, we know how to combat it. And this is in a nonviolent way. We're not taking anything. We're taking our own power and utilizing it and operating from that place. So Ascension isn't just this earth thing. It isn't just this lifetime that it's happening. I think it's been happening. Ascension is a universal thing because we're trying to get, as many souls as we can up into this upper echelon to get closer to God. And then even from that point, we'll ascend again into an upper echelon. And then there's still, souls that are left in this like lower field, this lower consciousness. There's nothing wrong with that. They just still have more to learn and ascend to. They haven't fully understood this system yet. But we came here to experience, so we want to fully experience these systems. I'd say we probably have. But it's like, this is what we're working towards. We're still in this Atlantean Lemurian war. That's just my take on it. Other people might interpret this in a different way. But we didn't come here to have them understand us. I think a lot of us get frustrated because we're like, why can't they see the pain I've been through? Why can't they see who I am? They don't know how to deal with their narcissistic relationship. Why don't they just talk to me? I'll tell them what to do. They don't want to. They're not at that point yet. We're not here to make them understand us. That is not the point of it. We went into this and we agreed to come into this so that we could understand them. And not necessarily in this way of then I sacrifice myself and I do everything for them. No. That was for us. That was for our soul to experience. We wanted that understanding so that then we could pull ourselves out. And so that this third dimensional system can't plug into anybody anymore. So we really agreed to come in and help these souls in Atlantis who were wanting to advance and didn't know how. They weren't doing anything wrong. I don't think they were necessarily calling in, darker beings. I think they were just like, we don't know what to do. We want to advance. But they didn't know that it's all within them. And it's these beings heard this and they came right in and manipulated and took them over. But it's also we kind of let it and wanted it to happen for the betterment of the entire universe. So we seeded Lemuria to attract the dark so that we could help pull more people out of this darker place and up into this lighter place, so that the dark had less of a influence on us, on other people, on other souls. So we did come here to help, but we also came here to have the experience ourselves. We're going to be so much stronger for it as souls. I know it sucks. I know it's like, man, this is really hard. Yeah, that's the whole point. We knew it was going to be, but we're the tortoise. We take our time. We know that we need to fully understand everything and ourselves before we can move forward again. So we've took our time experiencing these lifetimes and these being trapped in these systems and taken over by these types of people. That was all false. It was never real. We always had our power with us. We just had to access it. Feel into the person that you want to become and pull yourself up into it. Act from that place. So I hope this makes sense. I think this is why probably a lot of spiritual teachers and people like that talk about healing the Lemurian and Atlantean lifetimes, because I think we're in a period now where it is coming full circle. The new earth that we're going to build is not necessarily another Lemuria, but we're using that energy to build it. It has a different intention now. This is when we finally get out of this war. We're done. The tortoise has completed the race. And the hare is still trying to figure out where the finish line is. So, as we pull ourselves out of the system that we have agreed to go into to understand it, we have an understanding of how it likes to plug back into us, and we're not going to let it. Because we have now felt into this higher dimensional version of us enough that we can fall back into that energy and operate from that place. I know it doesn't happen all of the time, but if we can put our focus on that and operate from that, the easier it's going to be. Just like when we want to create or manifest something, I'm going to focus on that happening. I'm saying this is happening, and I'm going to act as if it is. We're doing the same thing, but it's the version of us that doesn't get entangled with these types of souls or people anymore. We've learned our lesson, and now we're pulling ourselves out of it. This is how we win the war. You know, usually the war means like, oh, we've killed the most people, or we've taken the most land, or something like that, you know, and it's just like, well, for, I guess, Lemurian type souls, these higher dimensional souls, the winning of the war means I've had enough of this experience. I've learned everything that I can, and now I know how to not let it affect me. And enough souls have learned that and pulled themselves out of it that these systems don't have anything to attach into anymore. And that's how we win this war. It's been a very long one. And I think the Atlanteans, or those types of darker souls that took over, think they've already won this war and they have control. But I think they're starting to realize, like, oh shit, we've been in this the whole time. And they've just been like, you know, garnering their strength. We've been building little by little by little as we have this understanding and we can step into this higher place for ourselves. So Ascension is a few things. Us understanding this lower dimensional system so we can pull ourselves out of it and not have it exist, I guess, for us anymore. It's not a thing that we necessarily need to go into. It can't attach to us anymore. So it's almost like not wiping the slate, but it's like we've come in and it's like, you know, now even this we've taken another space that is light. We've just spread it so that these darker parts of the universe just become smaller and smaller. So we're pulling up into this higher collective with all these other beings that are helping us so that then we can all ascend together. And then we'll probably do this again for another planet and pull it up into the collective. So it's a universal thing. It's also an earth thing, and it's also an individual thing. So it's happening on many levels and in many different ways, whether you want to refer to Atlantis and Lemuria or you just want to say it's just earth in general. It doesn't matter. That's my take, my 2 cents, just another perspective on it. If you are going through this ascension process and you want some help, I am opening a soul mission group to help you create what you're here to create for New Earth in this beautiful Lemurian energy, this higher dimensional energy. This is a 6-month program where you get to work with me and a smaller group of others who are also on this soul path to here to create for New Earth. So if you're interested in joining on this journey, you can check the link below for my Soul Mission Circle. And then I also have a community coming in July. And I'm looking forward to working with and meeting a lot of you and creating what we're here to create, because I think it's going to be really cool. We're creating this new Earth, this like new Lemuria, and pulling ourselves up into this higher collective. So really awesome stuff. And for all the information, just check out below. I also just want to say thank you to those of you that donated after my last video. A lot of you have been so incredibly generous, and I really just appreciate all of you for being here and for your support. Thank you for everyone who likes, subscribes, who comments and shares these videos. I appreciate you all being here and helping to get this information out and help this channel grow. So thank you guys so much, and thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time.